So we're not even 24 hours after we had to have Ozzie put down very suddenly. I don't know if this video is going to be like all in one, or you know, as and when I feel like I can talk about it, because I just don't feel like right now I can talk about it all in one go. But sometimes I want to talk about it because it feels better to talk about it. Like today I spoke about it with my manager and she literally burst out crying when I told her. She was like, why didn't you text me immediately when it happened? And I was like, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I just wanted to, well, cry, which I did plenty of all through the night, which is why my face looks like fucking shit. This morning when I woke up, I looked like I had been in a fight. I had to sleep with an ice pack on my face. Literally, I'm not joking, I had to sleep with an ice pack on my face. And then I had kept alternating it like between my head, because this part of my head just felt like it was in a vice because I was crying that much. And I had to put one on my nape of my neck as well. And what got me the most, I mean, I can't specifically pinpoint what was the worst part of the whole ordeal, but much of it was the fact that he would wake us up every single morning. So we used to have a running joke, and I think you've probably heard this if you have a cat, is that you don't need an alarm clock if you've got a cat. And I had to go work the next day. And don't get me wrong, you might be thinking like, oh my God, why did you go to work? You should have stayed at home. But actually it really helped me with it, because it helped me like keep that routine. And if I just sat in the house, I would have felt worse. So that's the only reason I chose to. That was a choice. No one forced me to. But I was like, Lee, I'm not gonna, like, he's not gonna jump on us tomorrow. That was the moment that got me, I think, the worst. And that's where I sobbed the hardest, is like, he's not gonna put his little paw on my face tomorrow, or he's not gonna jump on me. And when I'm ready to speak about the whole thing, I will. Hey guys, welcome back, or to another video. As you saw from, it wasn't really planned to be an intro, and I didn't plan to wear the same outfit and have wet hair. It actually just worked out like that. So I just felt like today was the right day. I felt okay enough to talk about it. I did not, again, like I said, in that I've literally got wet hair, and here I've got wet hair, and I happen to be wearing the same top. But anyway, that was not planned. It just happened like that. But it's been now like a week since we had to put Ozzie down. And just before I continue going into this, everyone deals with grief differently, and it looks very different on different people. So don't look at this and be like, oh, but you look fine, and oh, but you sound okay, and you're not crying enough, or why did you go to work the next day? People deal with grief differently. And actually one thing that's helped me in this experience, because I have had cats die before, like when I lived with my parents, we had cats as well, and one of them got hit by a car, unfortunately. We had only had him 2 years. So it was just a very different experience having my own cat, like as in it was mine. Whereas when I lived at home with my parents, it was my mum's, if that I don't know, I just felt like it was my mum's, not mine, if that makes sense. But actually one thing that's helped me through this process is staying with my routine. So for me, routine really, really helps. It's helped me through my mental health breakdown that I had back in January. One thing that actually kept me going day by day is having some form of a routine, like just something. And for me, that was going to work. So that was getting on the bus. Like, you know, when I was actually at work, I wasn't even thinking about it. So for me, that really, really helped. It wasn't because I was forgetting about him, but it was just something that really, really helped me in that moment. But the worst thing that I felt was actually when I was on my way home. That was the absolute worst for me, because then I'd be like, oh, I'm going home to an empty house. Well, it's not completely empty, obviously, but I'm going home and he's not there. And, you know, all his little places that he used to have around the house, like you all know if you've got cats, they have these weird little places that they sit around the house. So I'd see the little nooks and crannies that he used to sit in, like these random ass places, and be like, oh my God, he's not there. So I just sensed his absence more and more when I was actually on my way home. And I still feel that now. And it's just such a horrible feeling. I haven't quite gotten used to per se, but I've understood now that I don't have him waking me up any day anymore. Like, he's not jumping on the bed or putting his paw on my face. Or actually, what Ozzie used to do, he used to eat my hair. I don't know if anyone else has got cats that eat their hair. Maybe he used to really, really believe that I was his mum and he was grooming me. I don't know. But no one licks my hair anymore. And obviously every single cat's going to have its own quirks. So every now and again I think, oh, what about when we get our new cat? Like, what is it going to be like? He's going to have a different personality to Ozzie. And I keep umming and ahhing about whether to get a new cat. And my husband said to me, it's not a matter of if we get a new cat, it's a matter of when we're going to get a new cat. Because I don't know when to do this. I don't know. I know that there's no right time. I don't really know when to adopt a new cat. And then I keep umming and ahhing about, like, no, because that cat's going to hurt my fucking heart again. You know, that cat's going to end up, you know, leaving us at some point, and then we're going to be in this cycle again. But also, I want to give a cat a nice life. So we adopted Ozzie in March of 2021, and we were actually still in lockdown. So we couldn't go and choose him ourselves. We had to see him on a screen, and we weren't allowed to pick him up because it was all lockdown again. So someone had to bring him to us. So we didn't actually get to see him physically. We only saw him on a screen. And we phoned up the adoption place. We were like, we want to reserve this cat. And when we adopted Ozzie, he was already 6 years old, approximately. So we didn't have an exact date that he was. It was approximate because he had obviously been in care homes before and etc. So they said he's 6 years old. He has a heart murmur, but it's under control. And they were like, it's not a problem. And don't let that put you off adopting him. So I was like, no, I want to give a cat a chance. I love black cats, and I know the story of black cats being left behind. So I was like, I want a black cat, and I don't care if he's got a heart murmur. If anything, I want to make sure he has a good life, because him having a heart murmur and being black, we all know how it goes for black cats in adoption centres. So I was more inclined to get him, if anything. So he gets dropped off on our doorstep. We let him out of his little cat carrier, and he immediately jumps behind the sofa, and he stays there all day. And we understood, because with the cats I had in my mum's house, like when I was living with my mum, we bought them like when they were kittens. But obviously, since I had my own property and I, you know, when I became an adult, I was like, no, I'm going to adopt. I don't want to shop anymore. So this was the first adopted cat I had. I wasn't really sure of his background. They gave us a rough idea of like his life before he came to us, just so that we knew a bit about his mannerisms. And, you know, he was quite a nervous animal and stuff like that. He didn't really have much confidence when he came to us, and he must have, I think we were told from the adoption centre, he used to live in a very small, cramped apartment before he came to us. So to live in our house, he must have felt like he was in a mansion. I don't live in a mansion, but he must have felt like he had a lot of room. Like, we have a garden and everything. And for the first 6 weeks, we weren't allowed to let him out of the garden because they said they might get disorientated and then get lost. But before those 6 weeks were even up, he was clawing at the door. He couldn't wait to get out. So we let him out, and, you know, he couldn't really scale fences. And we were kind of like, is it because he's old, or is it because he's out of practice? And then the adoption centre were like, no, it's just because he didn't have that in his old home. So he's like learning a lot of things. I was like, okay, fair enough. It's just really ironic in this story that he started off behind the couch and he ended behind the couch as well. And that's when I knew something was wrong with my boy, because he only ever went behind the couch when he felt very vulnerable, or when he didn't want us to be near him or see him in a certain way. And I later on found out that, you know, when cats usually know when their time is up, and they don't want their owners to see them like that. So that's why a lot of cats run away. I'm actually really glad he didn't do that, because that would have broken my heart, because I wouldn't have had the closure that I have. But then the fact that he went behind the sofa, I was like, yeah, something's up here. That morning, he was, I don't know, let's go to the night before, because I came home from work really late, and Ozzie was being unusually cuddly. And this was the first raised eyebrow that my husband and I had, because we were like, Ozzie never does that. So Ozzie, we used to love cuddling Ozzie, but he didn't like being cuddled unless it was on his terms. So he would come to you for like head scratches, for treats, red belly rubs, but on his say so. If we picked him up, I'd be able to hug him for like 4 seconds and then he'd jump out of my arms and then just run off. It was a shame because we loved cuddling him, but he didn't like cuddles. That night we were both in bed and he came and laid between us in bed. And we were like looking at each other like, what the fuck? I've never seen this cat do this. And I thought, fucking hell, I don't want to say this, but this cat better not be planning to like fucking pop his clogs. Anyway, he sat there and I actually took my camera out and I remember filming him just like sat between us, literally like this, just purring. And I took my phone out and I'm so glad that was the last film I ever took of him. And I filmed him and I was like, I've never seen him do that. Anyway, we go to bed. Next morning, he obviously jumps my side of the bed because I'm the feeder, you see. So he would come to me. He'd come to me because he knew he was getting fed. And he did another behavior that I've not seen him do. He laid on my chest. Again, my cat's not done that. So your cats might do that. This was not Aussie behavior. He laid on my chest and I was like, okay, he's just going to jump off any minute now. So I started scratching like under his chin and giving him a cuddle. And we just sat there and I was like, any minute now, he's just going to get pissed off. Because he'd only do that to like wake me up to say, hey, bitch, feed me. But this moment, he stayed there for ages. And I was like, what the fuck? I've never seen this cat do that. Anyway, we go downstairs. He eats his breakfast. He goes outside. So I'd always feed him his breakfast. He'd go outside in the garden and obviously do his business. And sometimes he'd loiter around. Like if it's nice weather, he would jump across the fence. He'd go and do whatever cats do. I don't know. And then when my husband left for work, I was off that day. So my husband left for work, he let him back in. And I was upstairs just chilling. I was actually chatting to my mum on the phone and I saw him run upstairs and he made like a weird meow and I don't know what it was. And I was chatting to my mum on the phone about something. And I saw him run upstairs and he kind of was prowling. And he usually did that if he was scared of something outside. So he hated if he heard like a delivery truck or the bin men, he would fucking go wild and he'd go and hide in the wardrobe. So I thought, oh, okay, well, it's not bin collection day. So what spooked him kind of thing. So I'll get off the phone and I go and check. He's fine. He's laying there. He's just laying, he's sleeping. He's doing his usual Aussie shit. I was like, okay, maybe he's okay. And then I looked outside. There were no trucks, like no deliveries, nothing. I was like, okay. Anyway, I even filmed a few videos of him. I go out, I leave biscuits for him at the door, like I usually do. If I know I'm going to be out a few hours, I just leave him a few biscuits there so that if I'm longer than anticipated, he has something there. So I've come back, I've looked at the bowl and the bowl's full and I was like, okay, Ozzie must be tired today because usually he doesn't go this long without at least a little snack and he's not touched his biscuits, which means he's not been downstairs. So I go upstairs and he's still sleeping. So I'm like, Ozzie, like, what's going on? Don't you want your biscuits? And so he kind of gets up. You know what cats are like when they just get up from a sleep? They're like stretching and everything like this. They're like taking their time. You know cats, everything's on my time. And he starts coming down the stairs. And usually if I go down the stairs, he would follow me straight up. Again, like I said, I'm the feeder. So he followed me everywhere. So I'm like, come on, Ozzie, let's go down. Come on, you haven't eaten your biscuits. You know, let me let you out. Because it was a nice day. The sun was out. I was like, why don't you go out and run around? And he kind of just ambles down the stairs a little bit, like very unenthusiastic. And I'm like, this is not my cat. You know your cat. You know your pet. Whatever pet you have, you know your pet. Anyways, I've gone downstairs and he's followed me down slowly. And he's walked past his biscuit bowl and I've gone to the sink to like do some washing up and clean the sink, whatever. And I've turned around and he's just sat behind me staring at me. Like walked past his biscuits, just staring at me. And I was like, what is wrong with this animal today? So he seemed okay in terms of, you know, when they say cats hide how they're feeling, he wasn't visibly in any pain that I could see in that moment. So I'm like, oh, Oz, what's going on with you? Like, come on, they're your biscuits. Look, I had to get the treat bag out because he goes mad when the treat bag comes out. So I took the treat bag out. I'm shaking it. I'm like, look, like little treats, little dreamies. And he's kind of just like, yeah, whatever. Like, okay. So he walks past me and that's when I see him limping. And I was like, and he's trying not to show me that he's limping because, you know, cats don't like being vulnerable. They don't like showing their owners that they're in pain. And I thought to myself, oh my God, my first thought was he did this morning. He like jumped off a fence too heavy, or I don't know what cats get up to when they're out, but maybe he got into a fight and we don't know about it. So he's limping on this back leg. So I'm trying to get him to move a bit more so that I can properly see what's going on, and he's still limping. And then that's when he goes behind the couch. So I get my phone and I text my husband. I'm like, Aussie's not eating his biscuits and I've just noticed he's limping. And it takes him ages to get back to me because he was at work and he doesn't have his phone on him at work. And I'm like, read the messages. So in the meantime, I'm trying to get Ozzie to like eat some biscuits, eat some treats, whatever. And he's just sat behind the couch, like not responding to me, not looking at me, just sat behind the couch. And I'm thinking, okay, something's wrong now, because I know that when this couch is involved, something's wrong with this animal, or he's feeling vulnerable or something like that. And there's me going through all the things in my head possible. Like, has he got into a fight? Has he jumped off the fence hard and landed heavy on his leg? I don't know. I did know he was old. He was 10. So we had him for 4 years. And I do know that 10 in cat years is pretty old. So cut a long story short, I checked my phone. My husband's like, oh, this doesn't sound really good. He was like, ring the vets now. He goes, I'm on my way home. I ring the vets. In the meantime, I've rung the vets. I've made an ER appointment. And I've come back into the room, and he's managed to eat his biscuits because I've pushed his bowl like near the sofa so he can eat, and he's eaten them. So I was like, oh, thank God he's eaten. So at least he has his appetite. And the vet did ask me on the phone. She was like, is he still eating? Like, is he going to the toilet okay? I was like, yeah, he's fine. I was like, I don't know if he's hurt his leg when he was being outside this morning. Anyway, again, another red flag is when we got him into his cat carrier. Ozzie fucking hated his cat carrier. He hated the cat carrier. He hated car journeys. We think it was because he was adopted that he assumed we were like taking him away, but he just hated the cat carrier. We picked him up and put him in the cat carrier and just closed the door, and we were like, wow, first time. He was putting up no fight, nothing. And I really didn't want to think this, but I just kept remembering my husband's messages on the phone saying, this doesn't sound good. We saw the vets, and the vet was so professional. I'm so grateful for all the staff there were so professional. They were so patient with us, because we were there for like almost 2 hours. No, like an hour and a half kind of thing. And they had finished their shift. They like closed the vets at 6:30. We took the last appointment. And we left at 7:35. And those people stayed behind and waited for us. They were so patient. They were so respectful when we came out of that room. Bloody hell, I managed that long without crying. Anyway, I'm sorry, I hate crying on camera. It makes me feel cringe. So anyway, we go in, and I was really hoping, I said to my husband in the waiting room, I was like, I hope that all they're going to say to me is that he hurt his leg jumping off the fence. And my husband, I remember he turned around and said to me, that would be ideal. Because I don't know if we knew it was something more serious, but anyway, we go back in the vets after she's like observed him a bit more, and she's gone and got other vets to get like more opinions, and they took a scan of his heart. The vet tried to watch Ozzie walk, so she picked him up. She kept putting him on the floor so that he could walk and so that she could see, but he kept hiding behind the chair. And he was making it a bit hard for her to do her job and to observe him properly. And just the way she paused before she told us, I was like, this is not fucking good. It was just the pause, like, she knew, and she was getting ready to tell us that it wasn't good. So because Ozzie had a heart murmur, his heart had increased in size from the scan that they did. It had increased in size, and it was like struggling to work a little bit harder. And what had happened is he had developed a blood clot, and it had dropped into his leg, hence the limping. And she was like, he's mild at the moment, but we're going to give you our professional opinion. And because we've seen this before in animals, we need to let you know that it's likely not going to improve, and that it's going to just get worse. Now, he was high on pain meds, and The meowing that Ozzie was doing, I've not heard him meow that loud. And the vet even said, she was like, do you have a very vocal cat? And we said, yeah, he's quite vocal when he comes to the vets because he doesn't like it. He doesn't like his cat carrier. And she goes, no, but she goes, I've heard that in animals before. And she goes, it's usually when they're in a lot of pain. And obviously we don't know the difference because we're not vets. And I said, oh, I thought it was just because he hated being in the cat carrier. She went, no, it's that sound. She goes, I could hear, she could actually hear Ozzie when he was in the waiting room and she was seeing somebody else. And she said, no, I heard when you guys were in the waiting room. She goes, I heard this cat crying. She goes, it means he's in a lot of pain. And she gave us the options and she was like, look, I'm going to be really honest with you. She goes, these are your options. She said, you can take him to out of hours and you can keep him there overnight where they will keep him on pain medication to hopefully ease the pain and to hope that his situation has improved within the next 24 hours. She said, likely that it won't. She goes, or your next option literally is that we put him down right now. And we were literally like mind blown. What the fuck? How has this happened in the last 24 hours? Anyway, we went out. She goes, I'm going to give you a moment to, she goes, you can come and see the cat if you want. She goes, we'll bring him out for you. His eyes were like so big because he was high on pain meds. He was all wrapped up. They'd given him loads of medication. And I looked at Ozzie and he looked so fucking fed up in that moment. He was wrapped in a blanket. He looked pissed off. And he actually kept looking away. Like, I kept going to cuddle him and give him headbutts. He loved headbutting us. Give him little headbutts. And he kept moving his head away from me like this, like as if to say, I don't want you to see me like this. And that's when I knew, I was like, this is not fair. So we spoke about it, and my husband's very like, he's obviously very pragmatic, and he does not make, he removes all emotion from decisions, probably because of his line of work as well. He's like, we need to make a decision without our emotions here. I know it's hard and it needs to be a unanimous decision. I was so tempted to keep him overnight in out of hours care. And then I thought to myself, how selfish would that be really? Because she's already told us, the vet said, look, your cat's going to be in pain. As soon as this pain medication wears off, he's going to be in a shit ton of pain. We need you to know that. And so I went outside into the waiting area and I said, I need to phone my mum. Oh, I phoned my mum and I'm like barely able to speak. And my mum's like a really chill person. She's like hella calm, like too calm almost. And I remember the first words I said to her was like, something bad's happened. And I was like, who fucking talks like that? Fuck's sake. So I explained what was going on. And she said to me, I think you know what you need to do. And that's, I mean, I knew in my heart the decision I had made, but you know, there's always that little bit of, you know what? I'm going to make a different decision. I'm going to try my best to give him the best life. And then I was like, no, it's selfish though. It is selfish to keep him alive. And I spoke to my friend about this a day afterwards. And she said to me, cats and animals, like they accept when it's their time to go. Like when they know it's their time, they're like, okay, cool. Thanks for the life. I'm off. Thanks for all the good times. Thanks for the treats. I'm going to be off now. Whereas it's humans who prolong life. It's humans who are like, no, like keep them alive. It's evil. We can't just kill people, blah, blah, blah. And that put so many things into perspective for me. And I got off the phone and I looked at my husband and I was like, and I just nodded my head like, we know what we need to do. And it was, I've not had this experience before where I've had to have an animal put down. Because my past animals died in horrible circumstances, like they got hit by cars and stuff. But the vet told us like what would happen. She was like, this is what's going to happen when I inject him. And she goes, he's not going to feel anything. He's just going to go limp. He's going to just fall asleep. And then he might make a gasping noise. And I was like, okay. And I remember reading somewhere on social media that owners of pets always leave the room before they're going to be injected because they don't want to obviously see that, which who wants to see that? No one. And I remember hearing vets say the last thing the pet wants is to see their owner. Like, I think it's probably more like with dogs maybe. And I remember thinking, if I ever have to be in that situation, I'm going to make sure I'm in that room. Not because I want to see that, but because I want to make sure my pet knows that I'm with it. And the vet was like, do you want to hold him while we do this? And I was like, no. I was like, I don't want to hold him, but I want to be in the room so he knows I'm here. So the vet was like, look, he keeps hiding in this corner. She was like, he seems comfortable here. If with your permission and consent, obviously we signed the consent forms. She was like, I'm just going to leave him here because he's obviously comfortable. And then she was stroking him and she was being so lovely to this poor animal. I didn't really watch. I just wanted to be there, but I didn't watch. Like, I just sat kind of like this, if that makes sense. And then afterwards, when it happens, she like laid him down on a blanket and she left us to it. I remember I kept saying to him over and over again, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Because there's still guilt. Like, even now, there's still so much guilt that I feel. Even though I know deep in my heart this was the best decision all round, because he would have still been in pain. And the vet said that several times. She was like, it's going to be a rough night for him if you choose to take him to out of hours. He will just be in pain. And I did not want this cat to obviously be in pain. More to the point, I didn't want him to resent us for keeping him in pain. Because cats know when it's their time. They're not like humans. They're not selfish like humans where, oh, I want to prolong it because I want you in my life for longer. Like, they know, look, it's time. And I just kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It was all I could say in that moment. And then he took his last breath and he like gasped, which is what the vet said he would do. And I felt like that was a moment. He was like saying, it's okay. Like, it's okay, mum. When we left the room, there were several staff members still there and they just, you know, kind of acknowledged us because they knew what had just happened. And the vet was sat there with her staff members and they were like very apologetic. They were like, sorry for your loss and everything. They were like, do you need anything from us? Like, do you want some more tissues? And the vet was incredibly professional, and I thank her so much for that reason. She was like, guys, I know this was a really difficult decision for you to make and it was very sudden. Like, some people get advance notice of when their cats when they're gonna maybe need to make that decision. We got no advance notice. It was like there and then, make a decision. We were like in a rock and a hard place. And she said to us before we left, she was like, this is the hardest decision, and I want you guys to know professionally, we think you made the right decision. We think you made the best decision given the circumstances. You know, as much as it's difficult to admit that, it was the best decision in that moment. And we're gonna get him cremated, so we're gonna pick up his ashes next week sometime. And I've already decided where I'm gonna spread his ashes in the garden, because we have this pear tree and he would always sit under the pear tree. So we're gonna scatter some of his ashes there. And again, he used to have little weird corners or little areas of the garden, and I would be like, why are you sat there? Like, it's just so random. But we're gonna put his ashes in the little places that he used to like dominate, shall we say. And I found some jewelry on Etsy. I found you know where you have like a little pendant and you can put ashes in there of like a loved one or a pet, etc. I'm gonna get one of those. I think the worst part is when you're going through the pet stuff afterwards. So we'd come home and we'd see his bowls like still on the floor. And that night when I came home, I remember before I went to bed, I went to the fridge and he had half a tin of fucking food left. He couldn't even fucking finish his tin. I was so angry. Not with the cat, but just at the situation. I was just so angry, like, motherfucker, couldn't finish your tin. I just threw it away. I was like, if I come down in the morning and I open this fridge to get milk out to make myself a cup of coffee and I see that tin, I am gonna fucking let loose. Like, I had to let my cat sitter know, because she had literally been sitting him like 3 weeks before when we had been on holiday. She'd been cat sitting him, and she sent us a message like the day we arrived back, and she was like, guys, I'm gonna miss Ozzie so much that you're back now. She was like, this cat is so gorgeous, we absolutely love him. And when I texted her and told her, she was like, my jaw was on the floor. She goes, I cannot believe you're telling me this information. And I said, I just wanted you to know, because you were the last person, like, you were the last cat sitter that we had with him. And she was, oh my God, she was probably in tears as well, because I had to tell her over text. And I said to her, look, if your cats need any of our food, we've got loads of food left that Aussie's left. So let us know if it's the brand that your cat eats, or if you do know of anyone, and we can donate it so that somebody else can, you know, get use of his cat food. But I'm sorry if this was a fucking hot mess. I didn't want to have to put this video out, because I had others filmed, and now I'm umming and ahhing about whether I want those out, because I just don't know if I do. But anyway, they were filmed pre all of this happening, so I was a different energy. But that's about it. I'm sorry if I've made any of you cry. I'm really sorry. But I want to thank you for letting me say my story. And this was my first experience having to put an animal down. I don't know if I want to go through that again, but I do want an animal in the house, because I love cats. I want to save them all, because I'm now already looking on adoption center pictures, like on the websites, and I want to pick all the black ones. So the right one will find me, and vice versa.